let's just dive into this thing. Let's just do it.
Okay.
Got this awkwardly sitting there. Okay, ready?
I'm glad Jake on the last one pointed that out, because I was thinking, I watched a couple of these back, and I was like, that to somebody who doesn't know why we started doing that was probably like,
Why are they clapping?
that is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. The clap?
It creates a little spike in the
Yeah.
audio, and we started that to sync it up,
Yeah.
and then for whatever
And
reason.
now it's just kind of fun.
Yeah, I don't know, but I like that Jake pointed that out.
I thought the same thing. Yeah. Jake used to do all of our editing, and now Easton and I do a lot of the editing, and at least I'll speak for myself here. My level of knowledge is like baseline.
Yeah.
So that's the easy. It is really easy to sync the audio that way. He recommended it, and I think it was a great idea.
I probably work 10 times harder to do simple things, editing, just to like work around what's probably like the more advanced solution to do stuff. But yeah,
He'll ask me about like if we've used this shortcut or whatever, and I'm like, I have
Probably
no
not.
idea.
Yeah, no.
Definitely not. Yeah. So we appreciate you guys joining us. Episode number 10, I believe. Before we get started here, did want to mention it's May 20th today. So by the time you listen to this, it'll be June. We're starting to get minerals out, get cameras out. I've seen some bucks. I know you've seen some bucks that are taking a little bit of shape. Can't necessarily tell what they're going to be, but
you can tell
some bases.
if there's some promise there.
Absolutely.
And we have to remind ourselves, because it's been a year since we've been in these exact shoes, it takes a lot of base to be a good deer.
Yeah.
Like, it's easy to get excited when you start to see velvet. Like, once that velvet comes off, they don't amount to much. But I sent you a picture a couple days ago, and it was just a half of a face, and you could see a base that looked substantial.
It looked massive. When I first opened it up, I was like, dude, what?
I know. I don't want to get excited, but
Call him Moose or something.
yeah, that would be sick.
Yeah. Where I was going at with that, though, is we got a discount code for you guys if you want to get any mineral off of Redmond Hunt's website. It's Venari20, capital V, Venari20. Save you a little bit of dough. I just put some of the bagged crush, 465 out, on an existing site, but they were already crushing what was there, so that's exciting. I don't even have a camera over it yet, but figured get it established, and then surprise, when I put a camera out there in June or July, I'm sure there'll be some good deer on it. So
I think I've mentioned previously, we got those apple flavored. They're not rocks. They're like the salt blocks. I said I was saving them for a special occasion, so I finally decided to put one of those out, put it in an existing site. So I'm excited to put a camera over that and kind of see what's hitting that. But there's kind of a waiting period where it's like you want to let them start to find it, establish that site, and then once they're big enough to where you can start to get excited about what they are, slap a camera out there and enjoy.
It is really cool how like once you establish one, like it's like a generational thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you keep it going, like they just demolish the ground, which.
Yep.
I think we've talked about it before. I don't know that I necessarily buy into that it creates bigger deer, but it's it's our favorite way of inventorying what's there, what you may or may not have to chase. Plus, who doesn't like getting trail cam pictures? That's the best way.
Yeah, that is like the way I justify, using minerals is like taking inventory of deer and also getting not just inventory but like quality pictures. Like, if you have a camera over a trail or whatever, you might get a picture as it passes by, but like to get multiple pictures from different angles and start to be able to identify deer a little bit better and see different angles of what their rack looks like, and also just have like good quality pictures. I love that.
I've been trying to run video mode more too. I don't know why, I just never really did, and I've been trying to do more of that also, but there's all kinds of different different settings on these cameras these days, and I'm like a boomer when it comes to technology. They're all pretty simple, but I usually find something that works and set it to 5 burst photo, and I just never think about it. So I've been trying to do a better job of I'm putting this in video mode. And
it's probably a product of like having run cameras for 15 plus years or whatever, and the cameras back then didn't have video, and then once they started to develop that technology, it was pretty not impressive.
Yeah.
So yeah, I haven't fully embraced the new technology that's out there, but yeah, I think that's why.
Probably.
It's just hard to step into that. Yeah, the idea that the newer cameras have like really impressive video quality.
You kind of get like double excitement, at least with like the WiseEye trail cameras, or maybe some of the other ones too, but like you get the excitement of getting a trail cam picture, but when you have it in video mode, sometimes like the image that comes through, because I don't think you get the video right away. You have to request the video. Mm-hmm. The image that comes through, like I had a couple times during turkey season this year where I was like, is that a tom in the background? Yeah. So then you get double excitement. You request a video and get to wait again, and then it's like, oh, I got the video now.
Is that like a dopamine thing? Is that what that is?
Oh,
like just this like or serotonin? I don't know, serotonin. I don't know what it is.
One or both.
Man, it's like this just huge rush to check cameras.
It's so exciting.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Yep. So exciting. So, today, we're going to kind of just, I guess, cover a few different topics. I feel like we haven't seen each other in a minute, so
it's been a while.
Yeah, it'll be fun to go over some of this stuff. You were planting screens this weekend, right?
Planted screens and did a little just general food plot maintenance. I have an existing clover plot, which we got your seed. I brought over this afternoon here and checked on that plot, and the clover looks tremendous. And that was a plot that I tried in brassicas last fall, and very quickly realized it failed. I don't know if it's a matter of just poor soil in there, and I also think just generally doesn't get a lot of sunlight. It's not in a prime location for that type of food plot. However, clover is super versatile. Overseeded it with clover, and I believe I also went in with winter wheat as kind of like a cover crop as well. Kind of nurtured that all spring or winter into spring, and now it looks tremendous. So I went ahead and sprayed it with clethodim as well to kill off that wheat and any other grasses that are in there. Got that sprayed, also fertilized it, and then hit it with even more of the real world clover just to fill it. I mean, there really wasn't too many spots that needed filled in, but
nice.
Can't hurt.
Oh, yeah. There's something about a good looking clover plot that just, oh man,
it looks beautiful. Actually, the rock that I had told you about, I put in there. There's a big stump in the middle of that food plot.
Oh yeah,
that I put some 465 actually kind of on the stump and down on the ground, and then put a rock right in the middle of it. And
that plot kind of has it all, like fruit trees,
it's sweet,
mineral, plenty of tonnage.
Yep.
Blind, tree stand. I mean, there's water close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's like a little, I don't know if you want to call it, watering hole that I dug out.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It was actually an old mineral site from the previous owners, and I remember when we first got the place and seeing it, I was like, man, that the mineral site seriously is like 2 foot deep. And for whatever reason, since then, it's filled in with water. I mean, we have some clay in the soil down there, but for whatever reason, it retains water really well, pretty much year round. And then last year, I went and dug it out again, and yeah, it's a little water hole that gets pounded.
Has everything.
Yep,
that's a cool spot.
Other than big deer.
Well, hopefully this year.
We'll see. It's been since 2021 was like the last year that we had really nice deer.
Yeah,
one of which I killed. The other one disappeared and was never seen again. So
the ebbs and flows. It seems like we've been in a big valley. I'm hoping.
Yeah, that's. I tell myself every year since then. It's like there was some EHD or disease concern. Found a few dead bucks. I mean, not so widespread that I'm thinking like that's what did it.
Right.
I mean, it's not like I found 5-10 bucks a year. I think I've only found a couple, 1 or 2 every year. But yeah, I'm hoping if that is what it is, at that 3 to 7 year mark post disease outbreak, that we'll start to see some of those better quality deer back up.
Whenever I hear someone talk about EHD and then like the turnaround, like it takes 5 years to grow a 5-year-old buck. Like, that's obvious. But when you hear someone articulate that, I get one of those like mini heart attacks of like, oh my gosh, like you get wiped out by EHD and you're never going to start from scratch, but if you're hunting mature bucks, like you could, in a sense, you're probably going to get some that, move in or whatever. Mm-hmm. But like, I'll be 35 years old. Like, that's crazy to think about it that way. Like, it takes a long time.
Yeah, thinking about how much an investment, like, these properties are. Not that I paid for this property. I mean, I'm fortunate to, kind of have it in the family that I'm able to utilize. But as far as the investment on our side goes, putting in food plots and lime and fertilizer and fuel and travel just to and from, it's like you have tens of thousands in these places. And to think that, like you just said, 5 years you could be looking at if you get wiped out, it's like, it's hard to fathom being able to afford that, not monetarily, but just like, that's a lot of investment that I have in this place, and to not be able to hunt on it for potentially 5 years or hunt mature deer on it for 5 years is devastating.
It's probably even longer because you factor in neighbors maybe that aren't on the same, I don't want to say plan, but you don't have the same mindset as you, and they're, then you have the 2 and 3 year old up and comers to replace, or to get to 5, and they're whacking them. Like, that's a long road. I hope we never have to experience it to that level, but I know people have. Like, absolutely.
I think Ohio falls in a really bad spot as far as where those 2 and 3 year olds get schwacked.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not in a place where they can very quickly or easily get to 5 years old. So on top of the uphill battle that you're fighting to just wait that duration of time, you're also battling where it tends to be the younger age class of deer that are being harvested over, corn piles and by all the other means of which we're able to hunt here in the state.
Yeah.
Definitely sets them up for failure.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. Well, before we move on from food plots, something I didn't plan on talking about till you brought that up, but we had a conversation a couple months ago about test dates on food plot seed bags.
Yes.
This test date on this bag was January of 25, so just a handful of months ago. What is like the recommended test date? Or I guess to back up, what is the test date, and why should you pay attention to it?
So I believe it comes in batches. So the seed company or distributor or whatever it is, I think in this case Kitchen Seed is Real World's, whatever seed supplier. They test a sample of that batch for germination and composition, and as far as inert matter and all the other things that are in that batch. Obviously, the more recent that test date is, the more legitimate what is on that label becomes. So the further you get away from that, which I ran into it, and it's not necessarily the seed producer's fault or the manufacturer company, whatever you want to call it, because once it goes out their door to the retailers, it's up to them to kind of monitor that and pull it off the shelves when it becomes, not that it ever really becomes completely just dead seed. I'm sure, so many years later it probably would. But I've ran into that with super reputable seed companies where the test date's 3, 4, or 5 years old, and that falls on the retailer because technically they should have the wherewithal to realize, oh shoot, this is old seed, probably in the end comes back on the seed company to the consumer, because it's like, I planted this stuff, why didn't it grow? When in reality, it sat on that shelf for 5 years.
Yeah. I thought it'd be something good to bring up just for our younger listeners who are maybe just getting into planting food plots. I know, putting myself back in those shoes, I would have never, ever even thought to look at the label, let alone a test date.
Yep.
So I guess what you're getting at, correct me if I'm wrong, is you're probably better off buying directly from the dealer, if at all possible, to ensure more recent or at least a credible test date.
For the sake of strictly, getting fresh seed, I'd say that's probably the best way to go about it. But there also are like super reputable distributors.
Sure.
I mean, we use Rich in Southern Ohio, and like he's getting fresh seed. He's not selling old junk.
I guess that's what I meant. Yeah, so a reputable distributor, not necessarily straight from Real World in this case.
Yes.
But okay.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, cool.
For sure. There was something else I was going to say about that. But
what popped into my head was I had an experience at one of the major box stores, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, where I don't know if this is legit or not, but the worker at the store, the test date was I think it was 2023. Maybe it might even been 2022. And he told me, he's like, don't pay a lick of attention to the test date on those, because we will keep seed on the shelves and get a different sticker that has a more recent test date and slap that on the bag. So in other words, it says 2023, it might be 2021, and we just put a more recent sticker on there. Or it might say 2025 and it's 2023.
Yeah, that's shady.
Yeah.
As the consumer, they are flat out admitting that they are not selling you the product in which they're advertising.
Right. Which goes back to that at that point is completely out of the seed company's hands, right?
But if they're getting, what I'm confused on in that situation, I think we talked about this, if they're getting a label with all the, say ingredients, but all the different varieties of seed with, that matches what they're selling,
you think that's coming from?
That would almost have to be coming from the seed supplier, because I don't know that, in a box store, they're not in the back punching up, a new label to slap on there. That confuses me.
Yeah. He also, very nice guy, and I don't know him personally or anything, but didn't strike me as someone that is a food plot expert by any means, so that could be completely false. But just, I guess, more of a reason to kind of eliminate that uncertainty to try to get it from a reputable distributor or supplier, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't, I remembered what I was going to say is, I don't know the statistics as far as, 1 year post test date, how much germination you're going to lose, because that's the main concern, is losing germination. I mean, the composition of the seed really isn't changing. It's the test date as it relates to how much of that seed is going to germinate. So usually like a 95% germination rate is considered high. A lot of the kind of junkier seed that you'll see sometimes is like 80% or whatever. But as you get further away, generally you're going to see less germination. So their planting rate that's recommended on that bag, you have to keep in mind, if you're buying old seed, is going to become less credible to follow, because if their germination rate's based on 90% and this is how much you need to apply per acre, all of a sudden if you've dropped down to 70%, you're going to need a lot more seed to make up how much you're going to have to plant in an acre. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Interesting. God, there's so
and
much.
That's hard to guess.
Right.
Because you don't know how much of your seed's going to germinate.
Yeah. There's so many controllables in the food plot game and some uncontrollables as well.
Yeah, that's why you do what you can to eliminate the variables that you can control. Go in, spray it, get a good kill, soil prep, the seed bed, prep that good, everything. But like at the end of the day, I try to leave Mother Nature as the only thing that I can't control. Everything else you have the ability to have some input on.
Yeah.
So I try to leave just getting the proper weather.
Yeah.
That's the only thing.
That's as good of a job as anybody could do. Which, shout out to Rich's company, Tagged Out Seed.
Or I think he might have, I don't want to say rebranded, but Tagged Out Habitat Specialist, because he kind of does food plot, blinds, kind of all that stuff.
Yeah, cool.
Yep,
well,
but
thank you, Rich.
Yep, that's who I've used for all my seed for a few years now.
Yeah, pays to know people. Which, this may be a good segue. We talked about younger generation, younger food plotters, and maybe some things that we've learned throughout the years and some tips and tricks or whatever, learning from experience. We are in no way affiliated with Real World or with Rich. We pay for our seed just like anybody else. But something we wanted to talk about, was kind of on our brains a little bit, was partnerships or sponsorships or relationships within the outdoor hunting space, and within the outdoor hunting space only, because I can't really speak to the sponsorships in any other industry, but we've been around this game for a while now. It's crazy to think we've been messing around with this stuff for over a decade at this point. So we thought it'd be cool to kind of share some of our experiences. I think for a lot of, not even necessarily younger people, but it's super common and popular for folks to start an LLC or start even just an Instagram page or whatever. And I think in the back of a lot of folks' minds, there's probably some aspirations to work with, someone in the industry, and it's not always what it seems.
There's a lot of glamour or allure to the idea of that. Not just starting a page or a group or a team or whatever you want to call it. Like, I feel like as a young person growing up watching Realtree Road Trips and all those other shows that were around, like that was naturally like something you desired, was to start something to begin with, but then also like these partnerships. Like, can you imagine being sponsored or the pro staff for all these different companies? Yeah, there's an appeal to that for sure.
I remember you just brought up pro staff, and that wasn't even on my mind, but as soon as you said it, I remember I always thought that meant like professional.
And I think at one point it did.
What? I've always heard now it stands for promotional. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're like on their, promotional team. But you're right. The pro staff makes, I've seen people with it like in their Instagram bios, like I'm pro staff for this, and this.
Yeah.
And I think it used to hold like a little more substance than it probably does now, just because of how saturated things have become. But yeah, I wonder why that is, that it had, like you said, so much mystique as like a kid, and probably still does, but definitely when things were on television, it seemed, I don't know, a lot more desirable maybe, or maybe we've just grown out of it, but
we've had enough experience with it and enough, I mean, both good and bad experiences with it. But like you said, I think it also used to mean a lot more and carry a lot more weight and looked more like a true relationship between you and the partner, and was more of a, I don't know if you want to call it a friendship, more than like now it's just, you almost feel used in a lot of ways, like unless you're a high level partner or whatever it is. Like we've seen a strategy used by many companies to basically just recruit as many possible people for as little, I don't know if you want to call it like return that you get as the person being sponsored or whatever. Like they want a lot out of you, but you get nothing in return, really. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like it seemed like the model, and it could have changed now, because now we kind of just work with a few select companies who we'd use anyway, and a lot of them are friends. But it seemed like the model for a while was like, we'll give you product at a discount, and in exchange we want X, Y, and Z. And like they're still making money at that point off of you, which is fine.
Yeah.
But it was almost one of those things where like it's still exciting in the moment a little bit, and then you kind of peel back the curtain a little bit and you're like, wait a minute. Like I still bought all this stuff.
What as you mature and start to realize, like I don't know what the margin, and of course this depends on whether you're talking about like apparel or camo or scents and all these different things. It's like I don't know what the margin is that they have on that, but when you're getting a sick 30% discount and you have a promo code or whatever, you take a step back as you mature and can slow down and look at that and be like, okay, so all my orders, I'm getting a little bit of money off, which is great, especially if it's a product that you're going to use no matter what and buy no matter what. But then they're still making money off of that, and then anybody that then buys something, they're making, whatever. Like, are you really on the winning side of that? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know either. And I guess it all goes back to what ultimately you want out of it as well. Like you mentioned, it's all a learning experience, and we've definitely learned and had some great experiences and some not so great experiences. It seemed like for a while there, like there was just a huge almost disconnect with a lot of companies, and like some of them were like major names in the industry, where like the lack of communication between marketing team, sales team, the sponsoree,
I don't know what to call that.
Or partner, I guess. Like just a lot of miscommunication, or a lot of like initial excitement around like the relationship, and then it just tank. And like before you know, you'd like check in and it'd be like, oh, they don't even work here anymore. Like we have a completely different marketing team.
Who are you?
You're like, what happened?
Yeah, and I don't want that to come off like we think we are somebody. I realize that the way Mark Drury or Lee Lakosky would be treated by these companies is probably night and day different than the way they treat a couple people from Ontario, Ohio. But like at the same time, there has always seemed to be like this huge morale from both parties in the beginning. Like we almost never have initiated any of the sponsorships that we've ever had, or partnerships, whatever you want to call them. Like it's almost always been a company approaching us. So in that case, you would get the idea that, they would be super excited and want to continue that long term. But in a lot of ways, it's eventually come to like just checking in here. Like, and we want to provide value to them. That is the whole point. They provide something to us and we provide value to them, or return on their investment. And then, you reach out and it's like they don't even know who you are. This person left the company, or straight up just ghost you and don't ever respond. And it's like, that's a weird place to be in, because every time we found ourselves there, it's like, did it mean anything to them? Or like we still want to be of value to them, but at the same time, it's like why should I be the only one putting effort into that relationship?
Right. Something that I think helps alleviate some of that miscommunication or whatever. Like two people that I can think stand out, in my opinion, do a really good job of this is Austin with No Surrender gear, and then Shay with the knives. Like they would call like every month, nothing scheduled, nothing planned, just like, hey, here's some stuff that's on my mind. Here's some stuff maybe we need or looking for. How's things on your end? What do you think? And like those simple just phone calls or even text threads or whatever, like it just keeps everybody on the same base. And I think it's really healthy for something like that for both ends of the spectrum. And that's a learning lesson, I think, on our end too. Like in the early days, in our younger days or whatever, maybe that's something we could have requested or encouraged, or even just ourselves reached out instead of just, hey, checking in. Maybe when we started feeling some of that stuff slipping, it could have been a phone call. Just, hey, wanted to see where things were at, what you guys were thinking, anything on our end. So I think that's something that if I had to offer advice to someone that's maybe younger or getting into this, I think that's something that's really healthy with maintaining a relationship like that and continue to grow, with each other. But yeah, it's just funny to look back on some of those things. There's thoughts running into my head now of like some of the early on companies and like, how big you thought you felt or how big you thought that was going to, be or transpire or turn into. And it's just like you look back, you're like, man, that was destined for failure from the beginning.
Yeah, but think about like how cool it's been like to get a box at your door. This is, I'm thinking like 2016, I was a freshman in college, and I can think of, I would say at least while I've been around, like that was the peak of a lot of companies we worked with. And I remember like I'm down in Southern Ohio at college, and I don't remember if you were still in college at that point, but like you'd text me and be like, dude, we got all this stuff in the mail. And I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get home and like get my cut of it or whatever. And like, it was so exciting to me. But like to the point of you talking about Shay and Austin and those guys, like even if they call and check in and it's not business related, like they're not necessarily looking for anything from us and we don't need anything from them, but like just that natural development and growth of the relationship that would probably happen in those conversations is like, that's what we want. And that's what I place value on.
Yeah. Yeah. And anymore, it's a lot less stressful too, working with someone that you'd probably use their product anyhow, or even, I think that's kind of been like a trendy thing to say, like, oh, we're not, whatever, we would use this anyway. But like, even if it's something you didn't know about or you weren't using ahead of time, if you get it and you genuinely like this helps something, this alleviates a pain point that I was struggling with or whatever, in the woods. Like there's, I'm thinking of like the aiders. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't know I needed an aider until I had an aider. And now that I have an aider, I'm like, man, yeah, that was a pain not having an aider. So like stuff like that. Yeah, it makes it a little less stressful of an experience when you're like, I would be using this anyway.
Yeah, that similar situation with like the daisy chains. Not something I'd seen them, never tried them, whatever, and like I was using cam buckles, and Corey happened to have the daisy chains, and I tried his, and I'm like, seems like something I could probably use. I bought them, and now I'm like, I would never not use these. Yeah. So yeah, just things that you would naturally be using regardless, and if it can turn into a relationship that you build with somebody, all the better.
Circle back to 2016, if you could offer like one tidbit of advice. You're a diehard deer hunter. We would just say hunter in general, right? You want to express yourself and your passion through YouTube videos, Instagram posts. That's what you love doing. You would do it anyway just because of how obsessed you are with it, just like we were at that time and still today. And you want to maybe, get some skin in the game and start working with a company or two. What's something you would like, if you could go back now, advise yourself to do?
Figure out how you can provide value to somebody else. Like if you are of value to them, ideally they should then place value on you. And I would say that should set a tone for what that relationship should look like. We've known people to just reach out blindly to any and every company, just begging for something. And it's like, not only is that kind of gross in the sense of like you're just grasping at anything and everything you could possibly get for free, but also like what are you providing to them? So I would say don't get overly excited or overly ambitious to just have a sponsorship. Like find kind of your niche or whatever, and find something that you can provide value to a company.
I think that's great advice.
If it makes sense.
That's usually when companies reach out to you at that point, because they're noticing either, the message you stand for or the quality of the stuff you're putting out. I think the desperation is evident when you're the one reaching out and asking. Now, there may be something to that from, hey, this guy's persistent. Like I've heard of success stories where guys were just so persistent with stuff like that. Like, give me a chance, basically. And then they follow through and it can work out. But
I was going to say, is it like a sales pitch, basically? Like, but in that sense, I'm saying, here's what I can provide you. It's not necessarily a bad thing to approach a company, and I don't want that to be like my message.
Right.
It's not a bad thing if you say, I place value on the work that I do, or the footage or the photos or whatever it is that you have found that you do well.
You just don't want to say, what can you do for me?
Exactly. Yeah. Approach that company and say, here's a sample of my work or whatever it is, and is there something here? Like, could we have a relationship?
Yep.
And also, kind of unrelated, but like, don't get too excited or like place too much value on finding a company that wants to work for you, because it's not really what it seems. I would say that's the biggest like mindset change that I've seen between 2016 and now, is like, they're never really what they seem like they are, and they're very few of them end up being something that's super valuable.
Right. That's a good transition, because not being what it seems, I think, for me at least, when I can think back to the early days, I always thought like all these guys you see on TV or YouTube now, whatever, like they're doing this full time. And granted, there are some that do. But the majority of them, even a lot of your big name folks, have something else that's fueling that whole thing. Like, I think even Lee and Tiffany Lukoski, like, still to this day, farm, right? Like, that's an income for them. I want to say the Juries had like a construction business or something at one time, like especially in the early days. So it's easy to, from the outside looking in, to think like, oh my gosh, they do this full time. But a lot of them have other endeavors. That's the main money maker, and then this is on the side. I'd say that's probably changed a little bit with YouTube, just because like the TV days, what a lot of people didn't realize is they were paying for that airtime. Whereas with YouTube, you get enough views and enough ad revenue, and you probably can make an honest living. Yeah. But that's something too I think is important to keep in perspective, is that it's not always what it seems. And sometimes people may portray on social media their lives being one way, or it may look like they do this full time, and that's not necessarily the case.
Or if you're looking at like people that have sponsors, like, there's a very high likelihood when people talk about their sponsors that it's not like these companies are just shoveling them stuff. More than likely, just free product. Like, in a lot of cases, like, the structure of these partnerships is really not that glamorous. In some cases, with the really big people, there are. Like, I know, I kind of wonder if there's not as many marketing, like, dollars being pushed towards, like, teams or people anymore as there was back in the day, because I got to think now, like, companies realize the power of social media. Back in the day, like Outdoor Channel or Sportsman's Channel or whatever it was, I feel like that was the main means of getting their product out there. So like,
aside from like a trade show, that'd be about it.
Yeah, to shovel free product to companies, and then generally there were some fat paychecks being distributed back then to people. Hey, use our product. Here's, whatever, $50,000 or more to put your, show on air. I wonder how much that dynamic has changed as companies are able to kind of promote themselves through social media, if there's really that many dollars being pushed into, different teams and whatever. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure that's changed drastically. I still get confused. Like, Outdoor Channel and Sportsman's Channel are still a thing, and there are still plenty of shows on it. I wonder what that looks like now for those people. I cannot imagine it'd be as lucrative as it once was, and I'm surprised more of them. Well, a lot of them have transitioned to YouTube, but there's still some that haven't, and you got to wonder, like, what's the play there?
Yeah.
But,
yeah. Another thing we could talk about too is like the structure of what the partnership looks like, as far as like, is it a contract? Is it like a handshake agreement? Like what we found ourselves in or have found ourselves in.
Yeah. I can think of a few contracts. I think the what's the word I'm looking for?
Preference, or what are you thinking?
I think, right, yeah, if I had to go with a preference, it'd be a handshake, because the way we're doing things now, the people that we are working with, there's a lot of trust there, and I think a handshake's all you need. Contracts can get a little bit sticky on both ends, but yeah, if I don't know, moving forward, I don't know, unless it was something, I don't know, really big, or if there was, you know, money on the table or something like that. I don't think a contract's necessary.
And that's probably one of the extremes on kind of like the higher end level when you get into contracts. But we've had some, and like at that point, you're kind of binding yourself to deliverables, which I know I've read some of ours in the past, and it's been like, you know, we need this many social media posts, you know, sent to us to share per month, and it's like there are hard set deliverables that we are expected to, you know, provide them.
And that's where a lot of the stress comes in, because at the end of the day, we do this because we love it, and you know, you may not always have time to get however many social media posts over to them or whatever, and that's pressure, that's stress.
Yeah,
a lot of times on top of whatever else, you know, you have going on. So
yeah. I often find myself here in life recently, like struggling just to edit one of our videos, to have, you know, an hour or two to sit down, edit, to have something to post on Wednesday, like let alone then stressing about, you know, oh shoot, I need to go out in the backyard or in the woods or whatever and take a couple hours to take photo or video of this product. And that's where, yeah, the stress almost makes it like, is this really what I want? Not only is it taking away from your enjoyment of hunting in this case, but also just like this product has suddenly become a responsibility or like a burden to me, when I could use this product over here that is virtually the same and not have all this stress.
Yeah. That's why it's important, I think, to be able to delegate. I feel kind of bad because for a long time we just kind of dumped everything on Jake when it comes to that. And it's been a lot smoother the last year or so with all three of us kind of chipping in, being able to delegate some of the work and stuff. It takes some of the stress off, but it still is stressful and still is hard to find time, especially when you add kids to the mix and everything else. So, yeah, that's a great point to bring up. But again, like, you know, just I guess to use a transparent example again, like with Austin, you know, we right up front, like we have other hunting packs and we have, you know, turkey vests that we use, and we kind of just, you know, worked with him and said, you know, hey, is this something where you want us using these, you know, exclusively? I love the backpacks. I think they're great. We used them all shed season. I flew with mine out west and had all kinds of camera gear and stuff in it, and have found different ways to utilize it in different scenarios. But it was super, I thought, cool and realistic of him to be like, yeah, you know, you're going to have your turkey vest, or you're going to have, you know, maybe this fanny pack that you might use when you're running your saddle, or something where it's not practical to use the pack. And I don't know, I think that's really cool, because you can believe in something and use something and promote something and recommend something, but not be married to it at the same time.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's another aspect or dynamic of this whole conversation that is another topic that can bring in stress. Like, I'm thinking of like a camo company we worked for in the past, and they probably never even saw our stuff. Like, might have probably been part of that model where it's like, just put it in as many people's hands as possible. But I remember so many times where I'm out videotaping, you know, a hunt or whatever, and it's like, oh, you know, I had Realtree gloves on, even though the whole head to toe, and we would like specifically try to cut that out of the video, and it's like, how ridiculous is that? That's, you know, not only stressful, but like creates a ton of extra work, and
it takes away from the experience.
It made it completely miserable.
Yeah. I remember shopping for, this was well before we knew Austin. I remember shopping for like plain non-camo backpacks.
Yes.
Because they didn't want camouflage backpacks in their stuff.
Yes. You found one at Walmart.
And it was junk.
It was garbage. I still have it because you bought one. And then, you know, I had no business spending $30 at that point in my life. Like, I'm in college, didn't have the money, but I was like, where'd you buy this backpack? Like, I have to go get one now. And you told me it was Walmart. So I remember I went to the Walmart out here in Ontario, and I was with Abby, and we went and found the same exact backpack, and I bought it because we couldn't dare have, 5 square inches of another camo in the video. And it's like,
so, like, getting to the root of that, at that time in our lives, we're obviously younger, haven't had a lot of experience working with companies or whatever. Like, what was that? Was it just the allure, like you said, of like, we can't let these guys down, or we can't disappoint, or like this could turn into something, or like, what is it?
I don't know if we certainly did not think like, oh, this is our big break. Like, if we don't have Mossy Oak in this video, dude, we're off to we're gonna be on the
COO.
Yeah, I don't know what it really was, other than like this desire to like be in the space. Like, we want to have sponsorships and like put our show on this website and on YouTube. And
it's kind of a weird thing when you like peel back the layers.
Looking back, it's like, was I seeking validation not from people, but like you just wanted to be in the, I don't know if you call it the industry or what it was, but I think that's kind of what it was.
Yeah, I think that is it. Yeah, I hadn't really, I kind of forgot about that, to be quite frank. But that was I remember that being maybe like a couple of my most miserable hunting years, just because, the pressure of like trying to film, and at that time lugging in like giant heavy camera arms and giant heavy cameras, and then you're using a backpack that's not made for hunting at all. And then, like you said, having to be so meticulous and cautious of what you're wearing, and we can't use that clip because of this or whatever. Like, it 100% takes away from what hunting is supposed to be.
I struggle now to have like quality, different angles and whatever. Like, I couldn't afford to just straight up have footage that I physically have right in front of me and be like, I can't use that. Like, no, you need as much supplemental video as possible.
There's something so liberating and freeing of just going out there and like, I don't have to please anyone.
And
like,
how
I'm
often
here
did
for
you
me.
freeze your absolute tail off in the name of what? Like, I remember 2016. It was when Grant came in, and like it was miserably cold that day. I think it was in the negatives in the wind chill, and like I remember after the hunt, I wanted to scream because I climbed down from my tree stand and I tried to open my trail cam that I was checking on the way out in the dark, and I like physically, my hands wouldn't work because I couldn't have gloves on in the video. It's like, dude, like I could have had long-term bodily harm done to my hands because I didn't want to, upset a company that didn't know I existed. How ridiculous is that?
When you put it like that, didn't know I existed.
Like, can you imagine just me being here today, all because like 10 years ago I didn't want a company to see that I had Mossy Oak on or something?
Easton lost his hand in this for the sake of a sponsorship.
Yeah, that I think we got like 20% off or something.
It was, yeah. We still paid for everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I remember also, on the topic of not having any business spending that kind of money, like, dude, 20% off of, $2-3 grand really isn't that much, and I was spending a lot of money when I probably shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
But back to like, talking about Austin and those guys, it's like there's transparency on our end and understanding on their end, and I think that's a beautiful thing. It's like, hey, in not every situation does your product fit, our needs, and maybe that's something that in the future, your product develops to fit all those needs. But like turkey hunting, like we run turkey vests, not backpacks or whatever it is. And it's like, yeah, absolutely. That's liberating too, to be like, I don't need to stress about this. Like, if the turkey vest over here is what I need that day, I grab it and throw it on. If the backpack for when we're shed hunting or whatever it is what I need, grab it and take it out the door with you.
It's so freeing. Yeah. I remember when we kind of came to that realization finally, which I think just comes with maturity and with having those experiences, like anything else in life. Like, sometimes you have to go through that stuff to come out on the other end and look back and go, dang, I wish I could have got in front of that, or wish I realized that beforehand. But I'm thankful for all those experiences. Number one, they're fun to look back on and see how far you've come. But number two, it's, I guess, part of life. But It's also, I think, a little bit comforting knowing that, like, I mean, you hear some of the like crazy stories of like big names in the industry having to go back and like fake stuff, or they, I remember watching like one of the, I wouldn't say they were a huge TV show, but they were on television, and one of the guys had mentioned, like, see that clip? Like, yeah, that was filmed like 2 days after the fact because I didn't have that bow or whatever. I didn't actually shoot it with that broadhead. It's crazy what it makes people do. It really is. And it's kind of sad at the same time that there's not always a ton of transparency there. Like anything in life, it's not always what it seems. But yeah, it's wild to think that like somebody would shoot a deer with a broadhead and then film their interview after the fact saying they shot it with this broadhead and may or may not have been true. Or even, I think Jake and I talked the other day, like I remember someone had talked about they like somehow dyed corn so that it would like blend in with the leaves. They somehow like colored the corn.
Wow.
So it looked like they were, feeding on acorns for the sake of television. And it just, what you're consuming may not be what's actually happening.
Yeah. I mean, we talk often about social media and how it's changed the dynamic of different aspects of hunting in the industry and whatever, but like kind of along the lines of YouTube, it seems like there's been a lot less focus on like that type of stuff going on the Outdoor Channel and all those things. Sponsorships were what made or broke the TV show and its ability to be a TV show. So like these people were very controlled by following those guidelines, whereas now like with YouTube, it's like I love some of my favorite channels are the ones that just go out there and do whatever they want to do. Like, of course, within the bounds of the law, but like they're not faking stuff or filming stuff that, sometimes you miss stuff that you have to go back and film. And I understand that, but like straight up shady, like that didn't actually happen, but I had to make it look like it did. Like that stuff probably doesn't happen as much now, or at least with YouTube as it did back in the day.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure you're right. I'm sure it still does happen, but definitely not as much. Yeah. I remember Joe Sir talking about, I don't remember, what was his show called?
Risen? No.
Hollowed Ground?
Hollowed Ground Outdoors.
I remember him talking about the first year they were on television, how like the packet from the network or whatever, and like all the stipulations and what you had to follow and the this and the that. He said it was just like a book and it was like Chinese, So I can't imagine the stress that came along with that alone. And then you add in all the sponsors and stuff that really don't have anything to do with the network. That had to be just, I mean, they say what? Don't turn your hobbies into work.
Your passions into your job or whatever it is.
That is what that right there means.
Yeah, you talking about that, like I'm thinking in the moment of like how much less of that probably happens because of what YouTube has created. Like I'm even trying to think of the more like mainstream films and documentaries and whatnot. Like it's a lot of individuals, I'm thinking like Donnie Vincent, like going out and just doing what they want. Yeah. It seems to be like so much more of a freeing thing now than what it probably used to be. I don't know.
I think even just what we said earlier about like partnering with companies that you'd use anyway, that probably is a bigger thing as a whole too. I mean, especially with the way you're able to network with people in the industry anyway, like a lot of the relationships are probably already built ahead of time. So if you're the YouTube guy, you probably networked or got to know somebody that eventually went to work for Vortex, and there's a natural bond and friendship there anyway, and you'd probably buy their stuff anyway. Anyhow,
think about the ability for companies to nitpick who they want to partner with now too, because 20 years ago it was like these are the whatever it is, say 15 shows that are on the Outdoor Channel, like we're going to pursue them. Like a company wouldn't have the means to reach out to Easton McNeil via Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is. Like they have their set options that are on air, and those are the people that we're going to try to put our product in the hands of. That way it can be on the show.
Yeah.
And that's our promotion. Whereas now it's like a company can see anybody they want to on Instagram and be like, oh, that guy's page is cool, or he seems to have a good reach amongst other hunters or whatever it is, and like hand select you.
Yeah. Well, when it was television, I assume they measured how popular your show was based solely off of watch hours or viewership. Yeah. Now it could, I'm sure they probably look at your followers, your watch time hours, your views, your subscribers, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, your quality and what you stand for and all that.
Some of the partnerships that we've had or have like levels or tiers of sponsorship, probably based on those metrics that you just mentioned.
Absolutely.
I would imagine.
Yeah, because they'll a lot of times ask you to send me your Instagram analytics and your YouTube analytics and whatever. So, yeah, it's a weird space. I often wonder if, like, I don't know why my mind always goes to the fitness industry. I think just because I know some people that are like, power lifters and bodybuilders and stuff from like school and whatnot, and like they have, a protein sponsor or whatever. It's like, I wonder if it's as shady as
I could see that being that way, because I know people from high school also that just like, and not on a real high level, but just like generally are fit people and post, fitness content, and use my code for 15% off. And it's like, I see a lot of parallels there.
Yeah.
And like, use my code for 15% off, and they might be getting 30% off or whatever it is. And it's like, anymore, that appeals to me far less than it ever used to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Same. Yeah. It's still. Yeah. I've had moments where I've almost fallen back in like some of the same things, and I try to come back to what you talked about with like the camo company in particular. Is like that was rough. I wasn't myself, like it completely dilutes the situation.
You often say, what is it? Look good, feel good, hunt good, or whatever. Like, we were not feeling good, and I think that screwed with a lot, on a mental level, even just like not only the stress of like, I can't film this or whatever, but also like I didn't feel right in the woods.
You didn't feel deadly.
No, anymore, dude. I get in a mindset pre-hunt, and I'm like, I'm out there to kill. And that was not where my mind was then.
The older I get, the more I believe there is absolutely something to that. I don't know if it's like an energy you put out or whatever, but like when you have that confidence, whether it's
oozing
in your bow or what you're wearing, or just almost even we keep talking about like the freeing feeling. Like when I feel like that going in, it just feels like it could happen. And you're right. I remember during that time, you're just going in like bummed almost, just like gloomy. This sucks.
Yeah.
And I feel like it absolutely correlated to the type of deer I was or wasn't shooting.
Yeah, and I think that's all just part of growth as a hunter, because I'm also thinking like at that same time back then, I was soaking down in scent killer. Not that because we were sponsored by a scent killer, but that was just where my mind was at, and that's part of what you had to do per, everybody else on social media and the TV shows is like, dude, I'm drenching myself in scent killer because that's what it took. Like, so it wasn't all tied back to sponsorships, but also just like I still was finding out where I fell and how I like to hunt.
It's funny to think about that, because if you were to ask me at that time when I was, same thing, dousing myself in every, scent control measure known to man, hey, 10 years from now, you're going to think what you're doing is absolutely silly and you'll never spray down any of your clothes and you'll shoot bigger deer, I would have said, dude, you're full of it. That's not going to work. What if right now, the way that we feel 10 years from now, we're like, can you believe we didn't for a while there spray our clothes down?
Could be. Could be. I'm willing to have my mind changed. And I guess maybe one day we'll look on this and laugh the same way we laughed about the camo company 5 minutes ago. But
it'd be all right. That would be all right. Like it's the progression of life. But
yeah, I think some of my best hunts now are you have your bow fine-tuned, and not, I don't literally mean tuned, but like, your setup's exactly the way you want it. And it oftentimes is mixed match. I'm running this saddle platform with this different brand of sticks or whatever it is. And like this camo and whatever, like it's what I want it to be. And when it's what I want it to be, I'm happy. And when I'm happy, I hunt good.
Yeah. I'm really excited to wear some of the Osseo stuff this fall. I told Jake on the last podcast that like, I kind of had my run there of like no camo, whatever, and I'm really ready to like start wearing camo again and all that fun stuff. But like there was something so fun about that, of just like throwing on probably what I already was wearing anyway and just hopping in a tree. And like, I don't know, it just, you peel back the layers and you get back to the basics, whatever that is for you, and you have a lot more fun in the woods.
I think we started hunting in pursuit of, game, whatever that is, but because it's fun to us. Like, I think to simplify everything is in the moment, am I having fun? And if I'm having fun, I'm doing this for the reason that I started doing it. But like at the moment that it becomes less fun, whether that's because of something that you're persuaded to do based on somebody else that you saw on social media, or because of a partnership or a contract that you have, like as soon as that starts to become less fun, like that's when you know you need to get back to what you want.
That's great advice. Hunting can be a mentally grueling game as is, with all the elements of it. I mean, you go as far as saying, the weather can change the way you feel and your mood. You're factoring in your relationships with people. That's not often talked about. And, hunting, let's face it, takes away from those relationships a lot of times. So there could be friction, at home or at work or whatever. Yeah. No, but seriously, like it can be mentally grueling, especially when you're in it. Heck, you can hunt in Ohio. What is it, 4 months straight?
Yeah.
So like, and then you add on top of that everything we just spent the last 45 minutes talking about. Like, man, that's not fun.
Yeah, the financial strain of it. Like, you're already questioning how much money you spend on this stuff, and then it's like, am I spending money on products that I really don't want or wouldn't otherwise be using, or whatever it is? Yeah, there's a lot of different layers to this, and I think the way that I can simplify it down is just like, make sure you're having fun.
Yeah, let's make a pact right now that if we're not, we communicate that and keep each other in check.
We can end this with fun on 3.
Yeah, exactly. No, I figured I'd tie a bow on that. I think covered that to a T.
Yeah, I think it's you brought it up as a topic that we could discuss, and I thought it was brilliant because it's something that I'd say many of us or all of us have at some point been like, wonder what that's like. And it's not always what you think it is.
Well, and anymore, like just the way the world is, like a lot of people, whatever your passion is, have a separate page or account or business or whatever to express themselves. I can think of like a ton of people just right here that have, their own Instagram or their own YouTube or their own TikTok or whatever, which is awesome and great. So naturally, you kind of start to go down that path, and I think sometimes you get down the path before you really thought about it or
understand it.
And before you know it, you're like, what's going on? That's kind of where we were, I think. So, one last thing, and then we'll wrap it up here. It's funny, I thought of this when you said the financial strain. We drew a tag out west.
Yes. We kind of knew it was coming.
Yeah.
This is an interesting aspect of the whole application lottery game. It really is what it is like you have to manage it wisely, because we quickly found ourselves in a position where we knew we would draw this tag, and we did, and we found out we drew this tag prior to the application period of another state that we were basically on the fence of, probably had like a 40 to 50% chance of drawing in, and you got to make some decisions. But yes, we will be headed out west, I would say late November sometime.
Mid to late November. Probably have to look at when Thanksgiving falls. Is Thanksgiving a holiday it's always on a Thursday? No?
Seems like it.
Yeah. Why do I think in my head it's always on the 24th? That's not right.
That probably wouldn't work out, I don't think. But yeah, it's always right
mid to late November. Yeah, we'll have to figure out when that falls this year. We talked about the learning lessons and the natural progressions of working with partners. Another learning lesson and natural progression that I look back on is, I wish I would have bought land a long time ago. And also on this topic, I wish I would have started putting in for a lot of these states like back in high school.
Yeah, we're finding ourselves in the middle of like the point creep, and we're right in the mix with like the masses basically. We elected to not apply in some places where we were at risk of drawing. Not that that's a bad thing, but at the same time, when there's other priorities, whatever, family and jobs and whatever, you can only make it 20 hours or whatever it is, 25 hours out west so many times in a fall.
Yeah.
So
I think the way we did it is, I think it was the right way to do it. We're going to go hunt out there in an area that I wouldn't say we're familiar with, but, we've hunted out there before. And then I guess the flip side to that coin is where we 40 to 50% chance of drawing, we get to keep that point, right?
We'll keep that point for one more season. If we fail to apply for 2 application periods, we lose all our points.
So then it just makes sense to hopefully hunt there next year, assuming that we draw with that point.
And yeah, that's assuming no changes in tags, allotted amount of tags, and also we'll now be set back within that point creep whatever.
Yeah.
So we'll be in the mix with a lot of other people that will probably see a decrease in percentage of successful applicants, but in that case, then we'd have another point for the next year.
Yeah.
Have to find ourselves somewhere to go next fall, though.
That's a good point.
And maybe that's the, I don't know, like a whitetail sweep that we hit a couple fun states around closer to home that we've been wanting to go to or something like that. But
we'll find something to fill the void.
It's crazy to think how quickly, when you're talking like 7-8+ years to draw in some of these places, it's nuts to think that you might only, and we're fairly young, like, late 20s, whatever, 30, to find ourselves in a spot where it's like, I might get to hunt this place once or twice before I die, or before I'm, physically unable to go as hard as I do now,
or die at the rate we're going.
Or die. So it's like, man, that's a weird thing. Like, I'm starting this fairly young, certainly younger than our dads ever would have done something like this or whatever. But yeah, it's it's such a popular thing now, and we spent 2 hours talking about this before the podcast. They're just like how popular travel is now, and it's changed the game for sure.
The grass is always greener, and hindsight's always 20/20. But I think one day, hopefully, we'll look back and be glad we did some of these things when we did them. Because I know, like, speaking to my dad, I took him out west for turkey season this year, and like, you can very much tell it's like, man, I wish I would have done some of this stuff a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And we're doing a lot of it now, which is one day going to be a long time ago. So yeah, I think we'll look back and be glad we kind of taken the initiative on some of this stuff, which is a big kudos to you, because I know you keep a pretty good track of when we need to be putting in where, which helps.
And also, every state's different as far as, if you don't apply every single year, you lose your points, or you keep them for 5 years or 2 years or whatever it is. And the point systems are all different, and it's a lot to keep track of. But
it's weird doing some more research into it. Almost every state has something you can put in for, mm-hmm. like whether it's just a random WMA somewhere or whatever. Like I always just assume the western states, but when you get to looking on there, there's literally across the entire country something somewhere you can put into a draw for.
Kind of overwhelming. Yeah,
it is.
It's a lot to swallow for sure.
It is, and like you said, they're all different. So you're sitting there trying to find. And I feel like I'm never good at getting the information I want out of mm-hmm. something. I feel like I end up finding 2 or 3 things that kind of are worded a little bit differently, and I'm like, what's actually right? So I end up just getting on the horn with the DNR or something.
And get a straight answer from the horse's mouth.
Yeah. I forgot to tell you, out west, one of the states I shot a turkey in, on the tag, it says something about checking it in 7 days after the harvest, so within that window. So you don't have to call it in right there on the spot, but get it harvest reported within 7 days after the harvest. I'm like, cool, whatever. I didn't have good service anyway. So get back to the Airbnb, and I pull it up on my phone, and it says within 10 days of the harvest online. And I'm like, that's weird. So I figured out how to do it, downloaded the app, really easy, and I go to put in my hunter whatever ID number, and it says no tags found. I'm like, what the heck? So I immediately called the DNR, and they're like, you don't have to report it for turkey. I'm like, it says it right on the tag. They're like, no, you don't have to report for turkey. Just elk, bear, and deer. That's it. I'm like, what? So I let a couple days pass, flew home, called different DNR office right there in the county that I harvested my turkey in. No, you do not have to report any turkey harvest. Nope, you're good. I'm like, then why does it say it on there? He's like, I don't know. You do not have to, I promise.
That's scary.
So is that why, when I put in my whatever, he said, yeah, it won't even register because you don't have to report turkey harvest. I'm like, dude, why is it so unclear?
Not only, even when where something is spelled out, it can be missed very easily. And that's where a lot of laws get broken, is it's so buried that, people just don't know and break a law. But also, in this case, that's a flagrant just contradiction of information.
Yeah.
That makes it super. I mean, consistency is what makes people, gives them the ability to follow rules.
Yeah. He ended up saying, he's like, there's a hunt control zone in the southern part of the state or something. He's like, that's the only place you'd have to. And I'm like, so is it just on there because there's one finite area where you have. I'm like, still, that just seems so backwards. It just makes you realize that there's probably plenty of people out there that totally, don't do what they're supposed to do, or vice versa, because it's so easy to screw it up. It really is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was funny. I should have and maybe I'll call back. I should have said, I need your name and your badge number and whatever else.
A text to my phone that says this.
Verify it for sure. So, well, it doesn't feel like that was an hour, but I bet that was over an hour. Yeah. Hour and 5 minutes.
Perfect.
Yep. Well, appreciate you guys joining us, and we'll be back here in the future. Going to try to get some guests on. Been trying to get some local guests lined up for us. So, yeah, we'll try to get some other people in here in case you guys are tired of listening to us. But we appreciate y'all joining us.